Live stream audio test. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Good afternoon, colleagues. We'll get the meeting started. Apologies that we're slightly late, but I'm afraid the chair had to declare a nature emergency and use the facilities before we started, so apologies for that. So, welcome to the North Somerset Council Executive Meeting. This is an exciting double header today because we've got the Executive Meeting this afternoon and then full Council this evening. So I appreciate colleagues and officers for their support and energy. I can say this now in advance in keeping us going. So the first item on the agenda this afternoon is addresses by members of the public, and I believe we have one, which is Mr. Martin Slade. So over to you, Martin.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mike. Can you all hear me okay? Lovely. Okay. As you may recall, I addressed the exec on the 17th of July this year to request in the strongest possible way that North Somerset Council declare a food security emergency within the local plan in parallel to the existing climate emergency that has already been declared, on the basis that really you can't have one without the other. I had a reply just yesterday indicating that the NPPF planning officers are carefully considering this, as it will not only affect housing numbers but introduce new legislation for local renewable energy generation, which in turn could impact local food production and farmland. I thank you for reviewing this important issue carefully and look forward to seeing a robust directive to protect and enhance food security and farming in the finalised local plan. This is particularly important as it appears absent from the current proposal to be reviewed today regarding WECA. In addition, I would like to inform the exec that in discussing this issue with constituents, there is an appetite to protect food security and farmers, as indicated by these signatures that have been petitioned, where well over 100 people support the declaration. And to be honest, I could have got many, many more, as virtually everybody I spoke to agrees. In today's agenda papers, North Somerset Council is making decisions based on its current financial and context ambition. Appendix 1 recommends two actions: that North Somerset Council will join WECA and have a mayor. I'm concerned how this affects local democracy and what powers North Somerset Council residents may lose. Regarding the government's £1 billion devolution in 2016, the council chose not to join the regional authority. The leader then, Nigel Ashton, said any future resources or powers would be controlled autonomously by the proposed mayor, leaving local authorities with no say in it whatsoever. When one Welsh authority held a referendum in 2004, over 70% of the voters voted against the proposal to have a mayor. Other councils, like North Somerset Council, may only have a consultation. This current recommendation to join WECA looks more like centralisation than devolution. The decision-making process would be further away from constituents and councillors. Local democracy may only be made regionally. In March this year, the Department for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities stated, "Ministers are concerned as to the West of England Combined Authority's capacity to comply with its best value duty, including the poor state of professional relationship between the WECA mayor and the representatives of the constituent members." Following inconsistent actions against the highlighted concerns, the government issued a 12-month notice that is still in place today. Public clarity and transparency is needed to understand the relationship, responsibilities, liabilities and powers between North Somerset Council, WECA and its mayor, including the likes of Home England and Bristol Temple Quarter as indicated in the Companies House. Your report today says that government advised that their devolution ambition is to devolve new powers to regions based on certain mayoral conditions. This implies only regions with a mayor like WECA would gain new powers, not North Somerset Council or the people it represents. It is not appropriate to reduce local democracy due to a temporary financial situation. So, my question is this: what are the disadvantages of having a regional WECA mayor? What powers will local people lose? And will North Somerset Council have a referendum on joining WECA and having a mayor, as it is recommended in Appendix 1? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Slade. I was going to say then that I will refer your remarks to the relevant executive member. That's me. So I'll refer your remarks to myself and I will respond to you separately on some of those specific points. Okay, I don't believe we've got any other addresses by members of the public. So I'll move on to item 2, apologies for absence. I believe there is only one, which is Councillor Hannah Young. Otherwise, everyone's here. Item 3, declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests. Are there any colleagues? No? Okay, thank you. Item 4 is the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of July. So I will sign those as a correct record unless anyone says otherwise. No? Okay, thank you very much. Item 5 is the non-exec councillors' addresses. I believe there are none. So we'll come on to the first substantive item of business, which is item 5, the report that Mr. Slade was just referring to, which is North Somerset Council's proposed response to the government's invitation around devolution. So the recommendations... Sorry? Item 6. Sorry, I do apologise. Item 6. Thank you, Mike. So members will have seen the recommendation and I will move approval of those. And can I ask for a seconder? Thank you, Catherine. So just to be clear, the report has come about because the new incoming government has requested that all local authorities that don't have devolution deals at the moment respond using a standard pro forma to express interest in accessing future devolution arrangements. So the approach that's being recommended to the executive today is in line with our established policy of this administration, which is to seek membership of the West of England Combined Authority. So therefore the expression of interest indicates that that's our preferred direction of travel. It's not the only option on the table, and we have explored as a partnership other opportunities and will continue to do so over the coming few months. But it's important that we're clear when government is looking at the devolution landscape across the country where we see our future relationship. What I would say is this is an expression of interest. It is no more than that. It isn't a deal. It isn't a set of proposals. And there's clearly a lot of work to be done, not just to make sure that any proposals are in the interests of North Somerset Council, but also in the interests of the other existing members of the West of England Combined Authority. So this is not signing on the dotted line, but it is saying we're interested, we're up for the conversation with government about how to access a devolution deal, which is all about trying to secure long-term benefits for residents, businesses and others in North Somerset. So I'll wrap up there. Any questions or comments from anyone? So I've got Councillor Bridger, Steve first.
Thank you, Mike. Just a really quick one. I think I can answer my own question, actually, but for the sake of clarity, we're asked in the template appendix to state our initial preference for a mayoral deal or non-mayoral. We say mayoral. That refers to the combined authority mayor and not converting your role, the leader role here at the council, into a mayor, doesn't it? Which I think the government have ruled out single authority Devo mayors. Just for clarity. Yep,
I mean, unless it's a proposal. No, you're absolutely right. The only reason it says mayoral is because there is already a mayoral model in the West of England Combined Authority. And I think, you know, our view is, from discussions with government, if we were to say, yes, we really would like to join the Combined Authority, but we want to change the governance model, that's going to be a bit of a difficult conversation to have. So that's the only reason it's in there. And it's absolutely not about adopting a mayoral model for North Somerset going forward. You're absolutely right. Annemieke, Councillor Waite.
Thank you. I just wanted to pick up on the fact that in the paperwork it says under climate change and environmental implications that there are no climate change implications arising from this report. But I'd like to just maybe put in a positive plug about this. I receive a huge number of emails related to the West of England, the Combined Authority, where they are funding their businesses, their organisations, their residents to do all sorts of things that help combat climate change, and also in relation to the nature recovery. There's an awful lot of funding awash within the mayoral authority, and I'm afraid that we don't really have access to any of that. With very small amounts that fall our way and the rest doesn't. So I would actually argue that there are implications, but they're a positive one. Just thought it was worth pointing that out.
Yeah, thanks, Annemieke. You're absolutely right. And there are lots of positives and some negatives around potential devolution deals. Obviously, what this report, all it is looking to do is set out the expression of interest. In future, there'll be further discussions with government and with partners. And if a deal emerges, those are exactly the kinds of issues that we'll want to drill into. Okay, I've got no further comments. So if colleagues would like to indicate their support, or otherwise, obviously. Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to item 7, which is the month... is it the right item? Item 7? I'm challenging my numbering system now. Budget monitor for 24-25, which is the month 3 budget monitor. So there's quite a lot of recommendations in this one, which I'm hoping colleagues will have noted, because in addition to our normal month 3 budget monitor, we've also got a few capital changes and a number of other tidying up, for want of a better expression, issues, particularly around looking at the future of the household support fund, which we know now has been extended for 6 months, accepting some funding through the local authority housing fund, and proposals to review our development sites and land disposals. But the big picture issue in terms of our month 3 budget, as colleagues will know, is that we are currently forecasting a year-end overspend of £24 million, largely driven by the costs that we're seeing with adult and children's social care. The report sets out the work that the officer team have already done to try and bring that forecast overspend under control. In particular, we've looked at releasing our budget contingency funding earlier than ever before. We've looked at releasing any reserves that were previously earmarked for specific projects in order to support the in-year revenue costs. We're looking at considering all saving options, making sure that we've got spend control panels in place so that any spend that was planned in the budget is challenged again. And if there are opportunities to delay or reduce that spend, we take them. Looking at ways to further progress the transformation work that is already happening across all of the directorates to try and deliver those savings and efficiencies faster and more fully, looking at opportunities to maximise our income, and of course, as I alluded to earlier, reviewing our assets and our commissioning strategy to try and deliver earlier savings. There's been a lot of talk. We know we've had 15 years of austerity and extremely difficult financial challenge as a council, but we are genuinely in uniquely difficult circumstances this year. We have never forecast this scale of overspend this early in a financial year, and I think never has it been in such a way that we've got so little control over what is driving those cost pressures, because the reality is that most of this is being driven by the cost of providing care and the demand for it. Areas where we've got no control over the marketplace that exists for social care services, and we have got no control over our legal obligations to meet those service needs. So it really is a sort of perfect storm for us as a council, and that is what is driving that uniquely difficult in-year pressure. So we'll be taking a report to council later tonight, which will hopefully help members more generally to understand the challenge that we've got, but also to take that message across to our residents that we are in different circumstances and that they can expect things to feel different. And that won't just be because we'll be asking them to pay more for some things, but it'll also be that the council will be less able to respond to service demands and service pressures going forward as we concentrate more and more of our resources on those essential services for the most vulnerable in our community. So I'm going to move the recommendations and ask for a seconder. Thank you, Mike. And then I'm just going to invite Amy to comment further on the report.
Thank you, Chair. So, as has already been outlined, we clearly find ourselves in a precarious financial situation at the moment. As you know, as Section 151 officer, I do have a duty to raise my concerns with you about the level of risk we are currently facing in our finances. At the moment, unless we can control and reduce spending in order to balance our budgets, we will have to seriously consider whether to issue a Section 114 notice in February 25. For this reason, we're also escalating this paper into council so that this is really well understood in terms of that situation. We will do all we can to avoid any intervention or having to declare that statutory report. Continue to explore all the available mitigation measures as outlined by the leader earlier in presenting the paper, including how we review reserves, make best use of those resources, although of course they can only be used on a one-off basis. So we will next bring a report through to the executive in December, where I'm hopeful we will be able to demonstrate the impact of those spending controls on a reduced overspend position. But obviously we will need to understand the operational impacts of that as we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Any questions or comments from any colleagues? No? Okay, thank you. So in which case, could exec members indicate their support for the recommendations, please? Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the next item, which is the medium-term financial plan update. So this report obviously follows naturally on from the month 3 monitor, and I'm sorry to say that the pressures that we've just been talking about in the context of our current financial year don't suddenly disappear when we go into the new financial year 25-26 and beyond. And the medium-term financial plan update report sets out that longer-term landscape for the next financial year and beyond. What you'll see in that report is that the budget gap has grown compared to where we were when we set our budget originally back in February. So that 3-year gap has now increased to £29 million, and the shortfall anticipated in 25-26 has grown to 15 million. So we've been here before, haven't we, over many, many years, and the reality is that the approximately 40% reduction in government support that we've seen over the last decade or so is now absolutely coming home to roost every single year. And we're seeing ourselves and our officers and our services facing more and more challenge to be sustainable in the longer term. Obviously, officers and exec members and the wider membership are working through options to try and address this budget challenge for future years. But I guess the critical thing that we need help with is from government. We do need early clarity about what the funding landscape is going to look like over the next few years. We hope to get some indications of that, of course, in the budget when it happens later in the year, and when the local government finance settlement comes out in December. But the reality is that if we don't keep having these conversations and keep going through the difficult choices, we are lobbying hard, working with our MPs who have all three been very supportive. But the bottom line is this is not a time for words, this is a time for action, and we really look to government to help us and councils right across the country out with our challenge. So again, I'll move the recommendations in the report and ask for a seconder, please. Thank you, Anamika. And I'm happy to take any questions or comments, or again, if Amy as Section 151 wants to add anything. No? Okay, any questions or comments from anyone? No? Okay, thank you, colleagues. In which case, could you indicate your support for the recommendations? Thank you very much. Okay, then we've got item 9, which is the forward plan for the 2nd of September, which is obviously circulated and for noting. So again, I'm going to assume no questions or comments on that. Thank you. And then item 10, any oral reports or updates from any exec colleagues today? Nope, no indications, thank you. And we've got no urgent business. So at 3:52, I can declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.